Hey everyone, Eli here. Unfortunately, Jacob had to go about halfway through our recording session. So at a certain point, it will just cut to Amy and myself. So if you're wondering why Jacob's not there, that's why. Please enjoy this episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy.
Hello there.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy, watching all Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And today we have a great episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. This is episode 177 of Star Wars in the Galaxy. This is episode 2, season 22 of Star Wars in the Galaxy. Today we are back with another episode focusing on Star Wars Rebels, season 2, with the galaxy. Jacob, and I'm tempted to call this episode this. The galaxy is expanding, Jacob. We are seeing new worlds, new sites, new parts of the galaxy. I'm really excited about that. I really like all 3 of these episodes. And not just because of that, because they're also just quality episodes of television. But I really like that we're seeing more parts of the galaxy. Beyond Lothal and the occasional Gorel. I think that's cool.
Absolutely. I mean, season 1 was all about, grounding us in Lothal and, the crew kind of coming together as a family. And then season 2 really is this group, this unit, striking out and seeing everything there is to see, facing all sorts of challenges and being tested across every backdrop imaginable, such as
season 3 is today. And then season 3 is I heard you like exploring the galaxy, so I put exploring the galaxy on your exploring the galaxy. So, but yeah, we watched the episodes The Lost Commanders, Relics of the Old Republic, and Always Two There Are. We also watched the first and second episodes of season 8 of Star Wars The Clone Wars today. So that's exciting. Or depending on how you want to view it, episodes 1 and 2 of season 4 of Star Wars The Bad Batch. You could do all your fun tricks with that. But but we are not alone today. Today we have a great person I met over the internet. The great person we were introduced through mutual friends, our good friend of the show, Connor Chikiti. And about a year ago, I recruited her to be a writer on our spin-off trivia show, In a Galaxy Epic Confrontations. And we've had some great chats about Star Wars, and I thought it'd be great. I know, everybody loves Rebels. Nobody's going to say no to being on for a Rebels episode. So I decided to reach out to her, and she wanted to come on for this episode. So without further ado, Amy is here.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. I was actually so excited when you invited me to come on about these episodes, just because Rebels is my very favorite Star Wars series, at least until Andor. And also I've recently been rewatching specifically season 2. So it's very appropriate.
Fantastic. Season 2 is just there's a lot I love about season 2, and it is the galaxy expanding, those legacy characters returning, as we'll talk about this episode, and in such organic and fashion that makes sense. But we're going to we like to quickly get to know our guests. The first question is, how did you get into Star Wars?
So I originally got into Star Wars through the Muppet Babies. There was an episode in which they sort of crossed over with Star Wars, and I was a small kid and I was like, what is this? And my dad pulled out the VHS cassettes, and that was it. I got hooked, and I was, in my teenage years, excited beyond all belief that we got the special editions on the big screen, and I got to actually see them in the theater. And then we got the prequels, and at that time I kind of got into fandom and was in those days we had email listservs, and it was just a great time of speculation of who's gonna show up in these films, and so many crazy ideas being thrown around, and it was a lot of fun. And the prequels came out, and it was just the highlight. Movie theaters were a great place at the time. They were 30 theater multiplexes everywhere you went, and it was just a really exhilarating time to be a Star Wars fan. But the fandom was also rough at that point, and I kind of walked away after a while because it was it was a really bad time in the fandom, and I really just was off the radar with Star Wars for a long time until Rebels, really, when my kids were old enough to be watching, and I'm like, oh, some Star Wars show on TV, and I wasn't really paying attention. And then at one point I finally like sit down to watch it, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much happening here, and I was totally drawn into it. So yeah, watching Rebels actually brought me back into the fandom, and I got excited again about Star Wars. So yeah, that was pretty much my trajectory. It was like my Rebels era launched me into my Star Wars canon era, because after Rebels ended, I needed something else. So I started reading everything there was to read, and books and comics, and then yeah, that's kind of carried me through into, I needed more, and I needed to find fans again, and I wanted to rejoin the fandom, and kind of landed me on Twitter, and this is how I wind up meeting all of you guys. So yeah.
You answered the second question for me, which is how do you get involved with all this online? As soon as I heard Muppet Babies, I immediately wanted to butt in. I wanted you to finish the story, obviously. Fucking love that episode.
Yes.
When I was little, I had a huge Muppets phase, and I watched a lot of the Muppet Babies episodes on YouTube and stuff like that. And I remember that episode being like, oh my God, this is great. Love that show. There was apparently a new version of it, but I haven't seen it. It was made like decade ago, something like that.
But the funny thing about that is that years later, talking to my husband, that was also his entry point, because growing up in Mexico, his parents had been avoiding Star Wars because they knew once he saw it, he was going to want all the merch. And so they were sort of trying not to get him into it. And then he saw the Muppet Babies and was like, what is this Star Wars thing? And that was also his entry point into Star Wars. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Muppet Babies.
They did do, I just looked it up, they did do a new version. It's more recent than I thought it was. 2018 to 2022.
The series?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They did 3 seasons.
I'll have to look for it.
Wait, what? I just saw this on Wikipedia. Muppet Babies theme 2018, performed by Renee Elise Goldsberry.
What? As what? What role? Like,
I think she just sang the theme.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
That's so cool. I'm gonna have to look up that.
I'm gonna have to look at that after that. That's crazy.
All right.
Actually, I'm not gonna say that now. I was gonna say that and then cut, but that would be weird and messy. First, we are going to, before we get into it, we're going to do our summaries of the episode. In The Lost Commanders, it is becoming clear that the rebels need more allies and a base. This is something that, in a meeting with Commander Sato, is emphasized with the Ghost crew and Ahsoka Tano, who is in the meeting. And Ahsoka Tano suggests that she might have somebody who might not only be a great ally for the rebels, but also have ideas for an old base, an old military commander that she knows. So she sends the Ghost crew off with a head of an old separatist super tactical droid and directions to go to the planet of Selos. As they approach the planet Selos, the plan is for Kanan, Ezra, Sabine, and Zeb to go down, while Hera and Chopper stay in the Ghost because the hyperdrive was damaged during their jump, and Chopper and Hera need time to repair it. So Kanan, Ezra, Zeb, and Sabine go down. Kanan, Ezra, Zeb, and Sabine go down, and the tactical droid starts saying the numeral 7567, which eventually leads them to an ATTE that's clearly been repurposed into a home. They land outside and get out, and out of the ATTE walks 3 old clone troopers, or at least older-looking clone troopers, because remember, double aging. Captain CT-7567, aka Rex, along with fellow clone commanders Wolffe and Gregor. Wolffe, Gregor, and Rex have been living on Selos for some time. Last time we saw them, if you recall, Gregor was in Rex's resistance movement, and Wolffe had yet to go over. But at some point, he must have, and they must have gone into exile on the planet Selos. Tensions immediately arise as Wolffe's PTSD and programming go off when he sees Kanan and tries to shoot him before Rex calms him down. But Kanan is none too happy about this, given The last time he saw any clone troopers, they tried to kill him and indeed succeeded in killing his master. Rex immediately agrees to give Ezra to give the Ghost crew a data disk containing all of the secret bases and hideouts he knows around the galaxy so that they can search for a base. As the Ghost crew down there hangs around down there on the ATTE, as Hera still gets to work on the ship. Kanan lets Ezra in on his exact trauma from Order 66, but as Rex reveals that he, Wolffe, and Gregor had taken out their inhibitor chips so that they could and that they now side against the Empire. As long as they are there, the rebels assist the clones in a big Jupa hunt, which can feed the clones for a year on Selos, which is a desolate and barren world mostly. After that, secretly, Wolffe's programming goes into effect once more, and he indeed does contact the Empire, including Agent Callus, who sends a probe droid down to investigate what the hell is going on. Eventually, the rebels find and destroy the probe droid. Eventually, the rebels find and destroy the probe droid, but not before the Empire is alerted, prompting them to send a fleet to Selos to investigate as to what the hell is going on. Wolffe quickly apologizes and realizes his programming acted up again, but it's too late. The Empire is coming to Selos. We pick back up in Relics of the Old Republic, right where we left off, with the Empire coming to Selos. Callus contacts the clones directly, again, with this time Rex denying that there was any rebel involvement and there must have been some sort of malfunction. Callus ignores that and sends fleet down anyway because he has identified some of the Ghost crew with the probe droid that are on Selos. The clones immediately prepare for battle with the rebels behind them. The Empire lands a few AT-AT walkers down on the planet Selos, and the Ghost crew immediately retreats the AT-AT into a developing dust storm that's developing on. The rebels retreat the ATTE into a gathering dust storm that's developing on Selos, where nobody can see anybody on anyone's scanners. But Rex trusts this strategy as, of course, he has two Force users. Using the Force and some good targeting, Ezra manages to take out one of the AT-ATs with the turret gun on the ATTE, buying them some important and vital time to plan their next move. Through a whole bunch of shenanigans, and including ramming the ATTE into an AT-AT, the clones buy enough time for the rebels to escape, allowing them to sacrifice themselves for the next generation. But at the last second, Ezra convinces Kanan to turn back, and the Phantom rescues the rebels, and the Phantom rescues the clones. Meanwhile, Hera got worried the Ghost in atmosphere because Star Destroyers were approaching, which forced her to power the Ghost down. But with Lord Vader requesting assistance elsewhere, the Star Destroyers were forced to jump, and Hera avoided being noticed or captured by the Empire. Eventually, the Ghost crew changes Rex's mind, but not Wolffe's and Gregor's. So Rex goes with the Ghost crew back to the Rebel fleet, in which he and Ahsoka have a heartfelt reunion after over a decade, assumedly, of not seeing each other. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet rendezvous with who they think is going to be Lord Vader, but indeed is not, is another acolyte of Lord Vader's, the Inquisitor, the fifth brother, who vows to hunt down the rebels personally. In all ways there are, the rebels begin their search for new bases. But before they can do that, Kanan and Rex have a healthy-ish argument about how to best train Ezra for the coming war that they both see coming, that they both see approaching, with Rex chiding Kanan for a lack of discipline, and Kanan still not fully appreciating the talents of the wizened clone trooper. To escape their arguing, Ezra goes with Zeb, Sabine, and Chopper to an old Haven-class medical station that has been abandoned long since its use in the Clone Wars. The medical center is dark and spooky by the fact that all of the lights are off and that they have to scavenge for any medical supplies that may be found on the base, which is their objective. Unfortunately for them, an ID-9 seeker droid has been hanging around in the medical center and quickly alerts its master, the Inquisitor, the Seventh Sister, that intruders are aboard. The Seventh Sister goes to investigate, while meanwhile, while trying to activate just a panel, Chopper accidentally activates the entire Haven-class medical station temporarily, which doesn't cause any problems for them at the time, but unknowingly to them alerts the Empire and because of that, the Fifth Brother to their location, who goes on a shuttle by himself to hunt them down personally. Chopper gets lured away and electrocuted by the ID-9 seeker droid, who imitates his voice. And while Ezra and Sabine go to look for him, they are confronted by the Seventh Sister, who fights Ezra and Sabine. Ezra buys time and is captured for Sabine to escape. The Seventh Sister very quickly starts interrogating Ezra about who he is and the location of not only his master but of Ahsoka Tano, who clearly the Inquisitorius is quite concerned about. Meanwhile, the Fifth Brother boards and the medical station and quickly captures Sabine, who brings Sabine to where the Seventh Sister is holding Ezra. Zeb, seeing that he's quickly outnumbered, finds Chopper and reactivates him, and begins quickly formulating a plan to get Ezra and Sabine, as well as himself and Chopper, the hell out of there. What he ends up doing is calming Ezra and Sabine as Commander Meluron once again, and instructing them to stay calm and keep their chin up, as the Seventh Sister and the Fifth Brother escort Ezra and Sabine to a hangar to await for transport for themselves. Ezra and Sabine put their chins up and see the Phantom hanging upside down on the ceiling of the hangar. As Zeb distracts the Inquisitors long enough in the Phantom in order for Ezra and Sabine to jump on board, and it is ultimately the lack of cooperation from the Inquisitors, with the Seventh Sister focused on restraining the shuttle from escaping, and the Fifth Brother focused on deflecting the blaster bolts and various attacks from Ezra and Sabine. That is their downfall, as the rebels narrowly escape the Inquisitors and go back to the rebel fleet, where they inform Kanan and Hera and Rex that there are more Inquisitors out there. The episode ends with Kanan, Hera, and Rex just sitting in the lounge of the Ghost, wondering what their next move will be. Okay, so let's get into this, starting off with the Lost Commanders. The season 2 and 4 kind of do this weird thing where they have 2 double-length premieres. We had the Siege of Lothal, and now we have Lost Commanders and Relics of the Old Republic, which I feel like is our second double premiere. And then season 4 does this, where we wrap up Mandalore, we check in on how the larger rebellion is doing, and then we're like, okay, back to Lothal. Ignoring all that, back to Lothal. And I think it was in a really interesting, because I think probably with some compressing of story and stuff like that, they probably could have done this episode in a single episode, but they didn't. They chose to spend the time with Rex and Wolffe and Gregor in 2 episodes, even putting up that to be continued, which I think is interesting, and I think it's deserved. especially because Rex is such an important character in the Clone Wars and will, of course, become such an important character in at least seasons 2 and 3 of Rebels and a little bit in 4. I think it's really good to reintroduce us to Rex. Of course, let us know about the fates of Wolffe and Gregor, because at the time we did not know that either of them would survive or would move their inhibitor chips. Okay. I mean, we know about Wolffe and Gregor now because of Bad Batch, but we didn't know that then. So I just wanted to bring that up. Jacob, I'll throw it to you. Where you want to go first?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's deserved to have this be a 2-part episode. I didn't actually realize until I watched it this time that it premiered on the same day. I mean, I think, we talked last week about, the Siege of Lothal sort of setting the stakes for the season and really making a statement about what is out there, threatening Kanan, threatening Ezra, threatening the growth of the rebels and the little family that they've created as they kind of step into the larger rebellion. We also talked about how, a lot of the elements of the Siege of Lothal, like the intense fear and danger that Vader brings, with his presence in the story, that is not present in a lot of this season. I think in many ways, while the Siege of Lothal, kind of sets the stage big picture, I think this in many ways feels like really kicking off the season in terms of the personal developments, not only the introduction of Rex, obviously, but in terms of, Ezra and Kanan, I think in this episode, I was really struck by Ezra's leadership, and in many ways these episodes felt like his episodes almost more so than Kanan or the clones, despite everything that was happening. Just because of to me, I really I would say this. Yeah, I think it's a great place to kind of start the emotional arcs of the season, with Kanan and the clones kind of collectively realizing, through being put in this situation, through having to fight off the Empire together, realizing this is a new day. We have to put aside our old, we have to put aside our trauma and our regrets and our guilt and everything that happened, in the Clone Wars to fight the Empire. So I mean, I don't know where to start exactly. I am just sitting here thinking, though, how much of this episode could have been avoided if Ahsoka had just told Kanan, hey, just so you know, my friend's a clone. He had his inhibitor chip removed, and he is a friend of the Jedi. Instead, she just says, hey, trust him. What do you mean by that? Trust him. Okay.
Well, I would argue back to you
that was just funny.
If Ahsoka said that to Kanan, he's a clone, before she could get anything else out of her mouth, Kanan would say, why the hell would I do that?
Yeah.
That is true. That is a distinct possibility, especially given Kanan just doesn't like being involved in the larger rebellion at this point, period.
Because I think in this case, although I normally agree with you about characters being cryptic, I think in this case, Ahsoka was kind of being cryptic as a strategy because she knew Rex was too valuable for Kanan's trauma, valid as it is, to get in the way of that.
Well, she knew it was something that he had to overcome that he wouldn't necessarily be on board with.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
What I want to know, and again, the obvious answer is because they hadn't done this yet. But I don't want to know why Rex didn't tell him, and if he probably did, we just didn't see it, about his resistance movement. Because I think that would have turned Kanan around quicker. The fact that Rex led a movement, failed as it might be, but led a movement where a lot of clones were convinced to take out their inhibitor chips and realize what they've done. I think that would have convinced Kanan more than most things. Obviously, of course, the answer is because they hadn't figured that out yet. But then again, figuring stuff out yet didn't exactly stop them in this episode, because Rex drops the first known mention, I think, of the Siege of Mandalore before that thing even existed. The Siege of Mandalore, he says, I served her from the Battle of Christophsis to the Siege of Mandalore, which was not on screen yet. Which is
Nor I
like
think
so...
even written, even in the Ahsoka book, I don't think it had been published yet. So, yeah.
When was Ahsoka published?
2019. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember now.
It was
But I think it
October
was after
2016. It was
2016,
October 2016,
and this was 2015.
this was
so
like
this was
this was
October
2015. So I think it was probably, I'm sure it was probably being written,
Yeah.
but no, it wasn't even published yet. So, but for Dave and Henry Gilroy and all those people to go, nah, Siege of Mandalore, we're making this canon, even if we're never gonna get the chance to do it. Spoiler, they got a chance to do it. Is very funny. But yeah, so
I realized while I was watching this episode, I want to add, we are farther away from when the Siege of Mandalore was released, those episodes of the Clone Wars, than season 7 was from season 2 of Rebels. That kind of blew my mind.
From season 2 of Rebels, yeah, because that was...
I know it's just
5 years. Wait,
math, but like
it was a 4.
They're both 5 years.
5 years apart.
Yeah, it's a little longer.
It's just a little longer because I see what you mean.
6 months. That just
it's like 6 months. That's correct. That is weird.
I kind of grew up with Rebels. That was the first thing that I watched as it came out, so that always I always feel a little, I always feel the passage of time when Rebels
I just remember
discussed, especially
scrolling on YouTube and seeing that trailer for season 7 of the Clone Wars. I saw Star Wars: The Clone Wars trailer. I'm like, wait, why was this released a few hours ago? The Clone Wars finished. What is this, an old trailer or something? And then I clicked on it and I saw, wait, it's coming back. Wait, it's coming back. Yeah, but that is crazy. But yeah, of course, this I think actually this episode specifically is enhanced by season 7 and the Bad Batch more than it is detracted by it. There's a little weird canon thing you have to do where Rex says I never turned on my Jedi, and Shattered certainly suggests differently.
Yeah.
But you could even explain that away by doing the loophole that Rex uses in the very next episode of saying Ahsoka wasn't a Jedi anymore. His Jedi was Anakin, and he did never turn on Anakin. So, but I admit the mental gymnastics on that is a little weird, because I'm sure he was, at the time, he was talking about Ahsoka. Like, he meant to be talking about Ahsoka. But yeah, I will say, I think these episodes might have popped for me a little bit more seeing them the first time if we didn't see Rex, Wolffe, and Gregor in the trailers. Because trailers, the trailers instantly opened with, we heard, "My name is Rex," and we were just like, "Oh, Rex is in this season." I think it would have been cooler if we didn't know.
A funny story about that, actually, because in the pandemic, I was staying with my family for a bit, and my mom, who had really only ever seen the original trilogy, I got her watching. We all started a chronological rewatch because it was pandemic. What else are you doing? And we started with I think we started with Clone Wars. We went through all of Clone Wars.
Oh, nice.
And then got into Rebels. And so when the tactical droid is repeating 7567, 7567, my mom goes, "Is it gonna be Rex?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" To experience that with not having any of the prior knowledge, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" She totally caught that.
Taking the time over the pandemic to do a chronological rewatch of Star Wars. Boy, I can't relate.
We did that.
Nobody would have done that, right?
Not like we recorded all of it. Anyway, no, I actually had a weird revelation, sort of, and then it was quickly deflated because I saw the head of that tactical droid, and I was like, wait a second. Is that the tactical droid head they got in that one episode of The Bad Batch? And then I looked it up. It was destroyed. It was another tactical droid head, but wouldn't it have been cool if it was the same tactical droid
That's a
head
piece of continuity somebody should have.
that they
Yeah.
got on Corellia in that one
Mhm.
episode with the Bad Batch. Did we win? It's fantastic. I love that deal decommissioned. It would have been cool though. But the other one is the other thing that I was thinking of, and I've talked about this on the show before. Ahsoka, Kanan's like, "Hey, you want to join us to find your old ally?" And Ahsoka's like, "No," and she says, "There are questions that need answering." And Kanan like elaborates further about the Sith Lord. Please, I know people are talking about Ahsoka fatigue and how Dave loves playing with his toy. I know. I want a show about all the stuff that Ahsoka was doing. It can be a season between the Clone Wars and Rebels, and during Rebels, and like during the original trilogy. Like we can yada yada this all we want. Ahsoka had to be doing important things to
Ahsoka
be
behind the
absent.
scenes.
Yes, I want the Ahsoka the behind the scenes. I really do. Like I want to see what Ahsoka was doing. I want to see like when even like I think that would be an interesting show because it lends itself well to like an episode of the week sort of thing, adventure of the week, where Ahsoka at the beginning of her show says, "I go where I'm needed,"
Yeah.
and it's interesting, and it'd be interesting for me to be like, okay, so where are you needed? So where do you decide to go? Where do you decide to help people? Obviously, we know from Tales of the Empire that she met up with Barriss at some point.
Mhm.
I want to see that reunion. Hey, you framed me for murder and almost got me killed. Yeah, but I'm good now. Fantastic. But yeah, I also I titled in my notes the Ahsoka Chronicles, which I think would be a fun name for that show. Or I think it would be fun to title it Ahsoka, no, the other one. Like, because there's already a show called Ahsoka. No, the other one.
What we call
No,
like,
but
what's Ahsoka up to this week?
what's Ahsoka up to?
Keeping
And this
up
week
with
on
the-
What's Ahsoka up to?
Keeping
Where
up
in the
with
galaxy
Ahsoka.
is Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Speaking of the thing you just said, and Kanan, if you find my friend, you must trust him. And now, there were several times I wanted to make edits of this episode of I'm seeing in my head when she's saying trust him, I'm seeing the chip being removed. I'm seeing the Y-wing, the thing she went with to save this one friend of hers. She did Chirrut Imwe before Chirrut Imwe was cool. She found an abandoned medical bay and removed a chip that was supposed to be impossible to find. They fit in one Y-wing just to bury the dead and all that kind of stuff. My God, yeah. And as
It's
always,
funny
I want
because when she says that, I'm thinking of the Kanan comic, which to me
Oh,
is
yeah.
a very special place in my heart. But actually, when you think about that comic, when in real time, that actually came out just a few months before this episode had aired. So actually, if somebody had been reading in real time at the time, they would have had that context first of
they would have had the stuff with
Order
why
66.
Kanan doesn't trust
why
clones
he doesn't
and
trust. And I honestly,
specifically.
yeah. And I've made peace with the Bad Batch retelling of his Order 66 to the most part. But to me, the comic really carries so much weight, especially to this episode, because in the comic, rather than, in turning the focus to the Bad Batch, they really, I feel peeled away a lot of things that impacted Kanan there. And one of those is that he's sitting around a campfire, having all this camaraderie with the clones with whom he's fought for a long time already, for several months at least. They're sharing a fruit and joking around, and they've gotten nicknames, and all these things are going on. And then on a dime, suddenly they're shooting his master, and he's running away, and he's being chased by these guys that have been his friends for the longest time. And so I felt that was really significant that comic had debuted just shortly before this episode, so that you could understand what his trauma was and where he's coming from.
Yeah, no, I get the I get the people have, I'm not trying to be dismissive at all, attachments towards that comic, and I really like the idea of some say it happened this way and others say it happened this way. The idea
I
of
think that the Bad Batch is Wrecker's unreliable narrator version of the whole thing. That's how I look at it for myself.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. And then
Yeah.
no, but yeah, as always, I like analyzing the cut to titles and how good they are. I thought this one was pretty decent. just because like we have the prospect of Ahsoka's friend, who is it, if we didn't already know, or Rex. I wonder what Rex is up to if we did. I will say, so I want to talk about this episode on a weird meta sense, which is that I really thought I was really excited to watch this episode after the Bad Batch ended. And then it ended, and I'm like, okay, so nothing's really changed. I was so convinced, I think a lot of us were, that we would see the events that would lead Rex, Wolffe, and Gregor to Sealos. If not directly see them landing on Sealos, see the events that would wipe out the clones, wipe out the clone resistance movement, which we kind of did. But like, it wasn't a complete annihilation on Teth. It was a major blow, but it wasn't like ridiculously brutal or anything like that. But specifically traumatize Rex and Wolffe and Gregor so much that they're like, all right, we're gonna just go fish for a decade. And we just didn't.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that decision more and more, because I recognized that this was not Rex's, that like the Bad Batch wasn't Rex's story. And although it was the story of the clones, it was also the story of the Bad Batch, mostly, first and foremost. However, does that mean I don't want that story? No, I still want that story. I still want to see what Rex saw that turned him from, we have to fight back against the Empire at all costs, to, you know, not to invoke this one, Jacob, but go away. To you know, my fight is finished. I'd rather just live my days out peacefully now. But it's just, it's very weird to me that we haven't seen that yet. And I was wondering if we'd get it like that, if the next Tales after Empire would be clones, and then we'd see that or something like that. But like, nope, it's still out there. It's one of those stories, I think, like Ahsoka's untold stories, or the Ahsoka Chronicles and stuff like that, is stuff like that I'd like to see, but I'm not sure we'd be getting anytime soon. The Rex stuff is something I feel like we could get relatively soon if they wanted to, through animation or something like that. But before we get to the actual the actual interactions, I just wanted to talk about one other thing, which was, I don't know if either of you felt this way, but when we touched down on Sealos this time, I'm like, I immediately thought, wait, this is kind of like Abathar. If you change the color of the sky,
maybe Gregor likes it there.
Well, that's my question: is does Gregor like Gregor likes it? Seems to like it there, but I wonder when he landed, was there trauma? Was there? This was where, you know, after I lost my memory, God damn it! I wanted to see if I could pull that. Wow, the Battle of Sarish when he went missing. That's a question. That's a 5-pointer right there. The Battle of Sarish when he went missing, as far as where he ended up with amnesia, and where he, you know, was treated terribly when he worked for Borkus, which is still maybe one of my favorite Star Wars names ever. And then, of course, where he survived an explosion somehow. Please tell us. But I was wondering if like they went down to like scout Sealos as a place to like retire, and Gregor was initially like, no, we're not doing that. This is too similar to the place where all that shit happened to me. Let's not do that.
I doubt Dave Filoni would release these characters for this purpose, but I feel like these stories could really be told in the comics. Like, I think these would be great. Like, all of this stuff about like what was going on in the back. Like, I feel like comics would be a great venue for telling those stories.
Yeah, but I absolutely agree with you. My thing is, honestly, the and this is not to say that they couldn't be included, but like the comics, I've been more excited for the comics right now that I've been, like, just on it says a sidebar, I've been more excited for like where the ongoing comics are right now than I've been in a long time. Yeah. We're finally doing the New Republic in the Star Wars run. We're doing a sequel era with the Vader run, because it's not really Vader run. And then we're doing pre-episode 1. Oh, and then we're doing an Afro run during the New Republic era. Same thing. And then we're doing a pre-episode 1 run with Jedi Knights. Like, that's all awesome. I love that. That's all great, yeah. It's a great like exploration of stuff. Now, if only we could like, I love to see like when like in the build up to Starfighter and cross his fingers. The new Jedi Order film. I want to see like a post sequels one where Rey and Finn and Poe are just trying to just look around and go, so what do we do now?
Yeah.
What are we doing? I think it'll, after the Last Order releases, I think it'll be more established. But anyway, yeah, we get to the ATTE, which I forgot how cool that thing looks. Excellent design with that sort of like steampunk element to it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, a lot
they
of fun.
they tried to convert this weapon into a home, which I think is very interesting.
Cool.
And then of
And
course,
that's kind of emblematic of, you know, the clones'
Yeah.
lives at this point.
yeah,
So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
It's a great way of phrasing it.
Old
And-
relic. Especially
of course we know-
contrasted with their encounter when they first see the at in the second episode of this, and it's like,
Yeah.
like how does that thing even stay? How does that thing even walking or whatever they say? Like how's that thing?
which
stay
is funny because I don't know if you both remember, they then convert that into their new home after this.
Yeah.
I did not remember. that.
But yeah, it's great. And then immediately hostilities happen. Jedi, they've come for revenge. And I love the fact, and I forgot that for some reason I when I was watching this, I had a brain fart and thought that the inhibitor chip thing was established in season 7 of the Clone Wars, which was obviously after this, when it was established in 6, which was before this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, did they establish the inhibitor chip thing yet? So I was like, and so obviously like the quote unquote like plot hole in this episode that people like could have pointed out that they masterfully prevented, which was like, why was Wolffe reverting to inhibitor chip stuff if his inhibitor chip was out?
Mm-hmm.
And Henry Gilroy elaborated on this. I just looked at it. It was on this one on Wikipedia. According to Gilroy, Wolffe removed his chip after the event was done, but the programming and the trauma were still inside him, explaining his aggressive reaction upon seeing Kanan for the first time. I think this is also really helped by the Bad Batch, because we see that, but by the end of the Bad Batch, Wolffe's chip is still in. So the Bad Batch ends around 1.5 years after it started. So 1.5 years with that thing still in, you know, no matter how much, you know, deprogramming you go through after that and stuff like that, that's still going to leave a mark.
Yeah, I think he clearly, as well as kind of, he seems to be feeling his age the most of the clones. Like this is where this episode kind of gets more real. I feel like, I mean, my interpretation was that he might have been having some sort of, memory loss, age-related cognitive decline, based on his reactions, sort of the way that his sort of interactions, his conversations with Rex went as well. Where Rex was like, "No, remember, they're friends," and that sort of, I don't know. As someone who's had I've had family members, I've seen people kind of when they, get older and are dealing with memory loss, and it can look like that, and that sort of emotional dynamic where he kind of feels bad for his reaction once he realizes that he had the wrong idea, And
I will point out, in the Star Wars tradition of people looking way older than they actually are, I was just Googling it because I was looking at the age just to see exactly, because for a note I took later, just to see if things would match up for something. They're only in their late 50s.
Yeah. They're aged twice as fast as regular humans. Yeah.
They're in their late 50s. And I thought they were in their early 60s. They're in their late 50s now. They're in their early 60s by the time A New Hope happens.
That being said, their clones, they were doing some hard living during the Clone Wars.
Oh, of course.
Repeated head trauma, PTSD,
Oh, yeah. They were serving in the deadliest galactic war the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years.
I kind of believe it. I believe it if they're looking and acting a little bit older than they actually are. That's what I would say.
Yeah. No. I think a lot of it is PTSD and stuff like that. Yeah. There's the moment that Kanan ignites the lightsaber, I love, because obviously Wolffe is threatened, but you can see, but the looks on Rex and Gregor sell it for me. It's been so long since they've seen a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And to them, I think they still have positive associations with it.
Yeah.
And obviously Rex knows Ahsoka survived, But Ahsoka, like everybody else after 66, probably assumed that she was the only one, if not one of the only ones. And so I love that like glimmer in Rex's eye of like, oh, they're still real. It's magical.
Well, and the fact that that moment, I think, kind of seals it for him, like that it's not a hopeless fight. Like there are Jedi. Like I think for him, that was a moment of realization that we don't need to just sit back and age and let the Empire take over. But like at that moment, he's like, there are Jedi. We could fight like this again. Like it gave him hope, and I think that's why he kind of makes the decision to go back.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably like in like a starting, like his brain starting to like think about like, is this possible? It's not even like am I gonna do this, but like, is this possible? Do they have any chance? And then like right after they come out, we hear the theme in these 2 episodes that absolutely wrecks me. Da 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 da. After all this time having the clone theme back, God, it kills me. It kills me every time. The liberal usage of it in these 2 episodes is just like, I will never stop complimenting the Kiners on this show, because the way they integrate the classic OT themes with the themes they wrote for this show, and now the themes they wrote for a different show, is incredible.
Yeah, the music in this show freaking rocks. I love it so much.
The Kiners just, they kill it every time. Yeah, speaking of Ahsoka Tano, I have that line we were talking about before. Ahsoka Tano, I fought by her side from the Battle of Christophsis to the Siege of Mandalore. And that was another like edit moment for me. Like I was like, my mind immediately played through like the entirety of the Clone Wars of like, oh my god, look how much they've been through together. And just like it's crazy. These 2 episodes do so much to build up to that reunion at the end, and it's so freaking worth it once they do. Yeah, and I was just gonna say, and I'll turn it over to both of you after this. There's that line. Well, I'm not sure how much helped anyone these days. Didn't you hear? The Emperor said the clone army has outserved its purpose and retired us. Yes, Rex, I also watched The Bad Batch. Thanks. That line is aged incredibly well following The Bad Batch. It hits even harder when you know that Rex literally saw, not over hologram, like saw in person the Emperor say basically that. Which is crazy now that I think about it.
I liked our meeting the clones, like as a viewer, like seeing them, you know, we've never seen clones this aged before, and seeing their personalities. You know, Wolffe focused on basically just like self-preservation still, or preservation of their little unit, and Rex being just conflicted about, you know, what's their role when presented with this, you know, new information of rebellion, and Gregor just wants a good meal. And I loved seeing like just kind of the way that their personalities, you know, still were developed into like an older guy version of what we had seen in the Clone Wars. So yeah,
I remember D. Bradley Baker talking a little bit about all the clones, of like Rex being pretty much unchanged from the Clone Wars. I mean, obviously scarred from the events that happened, but like in his personality, pretty unchanged. Wolffe being the darker one, as he obviously taps into his programming, calls the Empire and all that kind of stuff. And then Gregory described as like
wild card.
Something happened. He got a little funny in the head a little bit, just like, you know, he's also seen a lot. And I think and Wolffe responded the opposite way to I've seen a lot, where Wolffe kind of doubles down. And Gregor's like, I've seen a lot, man. I don't want to think about it anymore.
Eat a good meal. And
yeah. Yeah. It's incredible to me, I think. Not incredible, but like it's interesting to me how, like, I think I was pretty mad at Wolffe the first time I saw these episodes. And it's interesting to me how mad I wasn't this time. Like, it's still like, I still felt like it was a little bit about like how I felt with the Clones for Order 66, where it's like, he's not really controlling it. It like, he's dealing with trauma, and he's been living out alone with basically seeing the same 2 guys for, again, probably a decade. And the first time he sees other people, it's freaking Jedi, the people, you know, who had been ordered to hunt down and kill for a few years, and then got convinced out of it. Like, that's gonna trigger something in him way more than Rex or Gregor, because they got their inhibitor chips out way earlier and were less convinced of the whole thing. Yeah, they hash it out a little bit. Kanan explains to Ezra, it was at the end of the war. Our fellow soldiers, the clones, the ones we Jedi fought side by side with, suddenly turned and betrayed us. I watched them kill my master. She fought beside them for years, and they gunned her down in a second, and then they came for me. Later, they said they had chips in their heads that made them do it. Said they had no choice. And I gotta say, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s delivery of that, like, little monologue right there, is incredible. Another, like, flashback for me, of course, of seeing those exact events happen in Aftermath, or or Kanan the Last Padawan, depending on which version you like better. But, like, what I think I appreciate, although this does, from what I remember just hearing about Kanan the Last Padawan, this does work for both versions, which is that Kanan so quickly forgets, and it's from his trauma, so I don't blame him. But Kanan so quickly forgets that in both versions, no matter what you choose, the clones turned against him, and that was horrifying. But there were also clones who helped him. In the comic, it was Styles, I think was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And
Gray.
Yeah, who sacrificed their lives to save him.
Yeah.
And Hunter in the Bad Batch, who lies knowingly to the imps, and that's kind of the first thing that triggers him and all the other Batch other than Crosshair to turn coat, which is, we just fought side by side with these Jedi. Why are we killing them now all of a sudden? So, like, it's interesting to me that, like, that Kanan has this. I mean, again, I'm not criticizing him or anything like that. It's just it's the fact that it's the nuance of that line in Last Jedi. It was a Jedi that created Darth Vader and a Jedi who saved him. That both things can be true at the same time. Let's see. Yeah.
Well
and of
said.
course,
Well said. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't. And then he says, I didn't betray my Jedi. Wolffe, Gregor, and I all removed our control chips. We all have a choice. And that line, that we all have a choice, is, like, so ridiculously Star Wars to me. Like, that is, like, the most Star Warsy moment, I think, of all three of these episodes. And I love all three of these episodes. That is just the, like, yeah, no, this is like, this is what George intended. Yeah, these are the stories that, like, not, like, in terms of, like, actually, like, the plot or anything, but, like, in terms of, like, the themes and the core values, like, this is what George intended.
Yeah.
Anything that both of you want to discuss about the meeting of the Rebels and the Clones before we get to the Jupa slinging?
I was gonna say, when do we talk about the most unhinged side plot of the entire season? Zeb
Untrue.
getting swallowed by a giant
Zeb has bait.
caterpillar.
Untrue, Jacob. Untrue.
Untrue? What are you raising me over Zeb getting eaten by Big Bongo?
What about AP5 slowly integrating himself into a musical with bugs flying around him in space?
Okay, yeah, you got me. I forgot about AP5. You got me there. Droids in space musical, probably. But that's like 30 seconds. This is like an entire episode.
It's like half an episode. Yeah.
Like structured around this, and it's absolutely insane.
It is. But I love it, and I love when Rebels goes on these little side tangents like this, because, like, and I think that Rebels at least taught me a really great lesson, I think, that I honestly wish more Star Wars fans would learn these days. There is no such thing as filler. Filler was originally, and people more knowledgeable than me can talk about this, but from what I've researched and stuff like that, filler was initially a term that was used for anime, for when because they were adapting the manga that the anime came from, and sometimes it would happen that anime would adapt its source material too fast. And so they couldn't finish they couldn't continue on with the story because there was no story. It was still being developed. So they had to be like, okay, what can we have these characters do until there's more story?
Mm.
But like Rebels is the ultimate. Obviously, there's the obvious one with the call, and everybody's like, why are we focusing on an entire episode on these space whales? And then suddenly space whales become like the third most important thing in
Little did we know. Yeah, that episode would, even if the space whales, the Purgle never came back, that episode still would have been worthwhile.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with you.
Ezra's development and us seeing what kind of a Jedi and what kind of a person he is. But no, this is, I want to hear your take on this, Eli and Amy, because genuinely, I know we kind of talk about, and Rebels is one of those shows where the way that the things that Rebels focuses on, where it's such a personal study of these characters and an intimate look at like the family sort of dynamics. I do believe that Rebels is a show where that there is no such thing as filler mantra works, and that's not always true. Like there are shows where like you shouldn't just have characters running around doing anything. In Rebels that works because of how the show's set up. This is one of those, this part of the episode, I'm genuinely, I don't dislike it, but I am genuinely just left wondering, why this? Why the Jupa? What is this telling us? And that's something that I kind of couldn't come up with much for.
I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be telling us much. I know that we don't want to think of animation as purely for kids, but I mean, this was Disney XD. This was the show my kids were watching. This is what brought me like back to Star Wars because my kids were watching it, and I'm like, oh, this is actually not just a dumb show. But like ultimately, the audience at the time, Disney XD, it was for kids, and so you've got to have these like bonkers like things that appeal to kids alongside all of the very deep, Star Wars messaging that's happening. I mean, if my kids were watching, like this was the part that they were like, like they're fighting this giant monster and he's under the ground and like there's things flashing and like that's what they care about. So like
fair enough, yeah.
For me, if I were to
appealing to everybody there,
I think you're absolutely right. If I were to give this like a thematic like once over for me, I would say this is what Rex is leaving behind. That like
it's kind of like
Gregor said, this will feed us for a year. They don't have to do this that often. And this is the most action they get at all. They were fighting wars and now they're doing this.
Now they're fishing.
And they seem pretty happy doing that. So for Rex, not only obviously does Rex have the trauma of the first war, but for Rex to rejoin the fight is leaving this comparatively tranquil life behind. And I think it impacts us more that Rex leaves when we see what he's leaving behind. But I also just think it's a really great, like, not character development exactly, but like it's a great like sort of almost world building sort of thing to see like what Rex and Wolffe and Gregor have been doing all these years of seeing like, like they could have like, that's the other thing that I love about Star Wars so often is that it takes the most simple ideas and makes them ridiculous. They could have just been fishing, but no, they had to do this whole thing with the ATT tank and the laser and like imagine all the times they didn't have Zeb as bait. Like and didn't have the rebels, the ghost crew for extra help. How the hell do they do it then? That's fascinating to me. So that's at least my read on the purpose of the Jupa slinging.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, no, honestly, my favorite part, then I just looked at my notes and there's another one, which is like it also works for Kanan to find a reason to be exasperated with the clones. Like, he doesn't want to admit he doesn't like them because of his trauma. Because obviously it's a hard thing for him to admit. And so he just naturally gloms on
pretty upfront. Sorry, continue.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like he has to find another reason to like a little bit more legitimize it. so he naturally goes to, why are we hanging out with these cranky old geezers who spend their days fishing?
Yeah.
What the hell can they help us with?
It is also just an objectively batshit crazy thing to do.
Oh, it is.
We're gonna dangle you off a rope. The monster is gonna eat you. Then we're gonna kill the monster, and you're gonna crawl out of its stomach, hopefully unharmed. You know, but I think Kanan is kind of, obviously it takes time for him to, I don't know. He's pretty upfront about, like, he thinks the clones can't be trusted.
Yeah.
And it's just him telling that story that's the problem. But he does not mince his words.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to that.
Also, I know he's getting a lot of praise for, rightfully so, I'm going to say it tonight, for Superman right now. But if I didn't know better, I think James Gunn stole the getting eaten by a monster in order to tear it out from the inside from this episode for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when Drax does that.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, Drax. I love Dave Bautista so much. Such fun
He's
actor.
great. Yeah, but speaking of Kanan's exasperation, I have the quote next. The great leader's not coming back with us. And Hera being Hera, it says, and you don't want him to. The summary of this show so far, Amy, is me realizing, like, not that I didn't think she was great, but like me fully understanding this time why Hera is just the best. Every time she can see through Kanan or any one of the Ghost crew just instantly. She instantly understands what's going on with them, which is like, yeah, Kanan's impulse is to leave them behind, but it's not for the reasons he's saying. It's because he wants to. Yeah, is great. I don't know what this was from, but I wrote down the quote: "A great Jedi once told me that the best leaders lead by example," and I wrote down in my notes, and that great Jedi took that shit way too far, Rex, you got to admit. Like, he did the most ridiculous things in order to lead by example.
Yeah.
He and Rex snuck onto a separatist dreadnought to board a separatist shuttle in spacesuits against an entire separatist armada just to receive one clone trooper. It was 3 of them versus an entire separatist dreadnought to receive one person. Insane.
Crazy.
Insane stuff. Yeah. And I have the quote, after the war, I questioned the point of the whole thing. All these men died, and for what? Which is actually funny because Rex says something really, really similar right before Order 66 is executed to Ahsoka in Shattered, which has a great. He has that, like, oh, we clones have complicated feelings about the war. Obviously, it's been our whole life, but without it, we wouldn't exist. Yeah. Anything else before we get to that probe droid?
I don't know. I was very impressed with Ezra in this episode. You know, obviously Kanan, you know, is very cranky, and he is, you know, kind of going through what he's going through, and, you know, throughout the first episodes of this season, you know, we know how he feels. You know, we know his sort of reservations about, you know, being a soldier, especially fighting alongside clones again, all that. And we really get to see Ezra step up. You know, it's Ezra who's, you know, pushing Kanan to give the clones another chance. It's Ezra who's being open. It's Ezra who is, you know, articulating why the rebels need the clones to the clones. It's Ezra advocating for the rebels to the clones, you know. And just thinking about where he was, you know, just a season ago, you know, it's pretty I like seeing that, and I was struck by that in this episode in particular, his sort of growth and development.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will say, I was just going to say, as the thing I mentioned before about the probes, one of the things I love that Rebels does, it makes probe droids scary again.
I was gonna say this is like bringing me right back to like Empire Strikes Back, like
Empire, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, probes are scary in this episode, and then Rebels outdoes itself in Always Two There Are, because if probes are scary before, in Always Two There Are, the probes are terrifying. Like, legitimately, like, we'll talk about Always Two There Are and how great I think that episode is soon, but like, the probes are terrifying in that. Obviously, Rex manages to hit it from pretty far with his rifle, which is like the physical proof of he's still got it. But they know they end the episode by knowing the Empire's coming, and they hit us with that to be continued, which I think is a pretty good use of it, honestly.
Mhm.
Anything any of you want to say before we go to Relics of the Old Republic?
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Relics of the Old Republic picks up right where we leave off. Instantly, I will say I forgot that Rex actually gave them the base locations they were looking for.
Mhm.
I said, did they ever do anything with that? Because I know the AP5 pulls Adelon out of his metal ass at the last second in that episode. He's just like, go to somewhere, and then they go to Adelon. They have the Haven Medical Station in the next episode is gone from the list. I'm curious if anything else happens from there. Maybe. I don't honestly remember.
I feel like when AP5 pulls that one out, isn't Chopper analyzing like a range of data of some sort? Could that be what he's analyzing? And then AP5 is the one.
It's on an Imperial ship.
Okay, so it's not this particular.
Yeah, it's on an Imperial like transport ship. Because AP5 was working for the Empire at the beginning of that episode, until he was like, "No, they kind of suck." Literally, like that's a paraphrase of what he actually said. Like he was like literally like, "Yeah, no, those guys are not cool, and I'm not going to hang out with them anymore." I love AP5 so much. Rex says, I mean, again, right again, like I said, our war is over, kid. And Ezra pulls out one of the classic themes of, especially especially like Imperial era Star Wars, specifically in the Disney era, Bad Batch and or Obi-Wan Kenobi, like Jedi games, a lot of Imperial era Star Wars storytelling pulls out this theme, which I think is great, which Ezra says to them, the Empire is on its way and they will find you. The Empire, like, no matter what you think, how you think you can escape it,
Yeah.
the Empire will find you, asterisk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Empire will absolutely find you, one way or another, asterisk.
That's sort of the message of Star Wars, is you can't
you can't run away from
you can't wait out, fascism. You have to take a stand at a certain point.
You have to take a stand at a certain point.
That's what Wolffe kind of doesn't want to. Wolffe is unwilling to accept that their time has come,
Yep, and their time has come, and everybody's time at one point will come, asterisk. That asterisk, of course, being, unless you hide out on Pabu for years and nobody comes looking for you.
Yeah, Pabu. Yeah. What was Pabu?
Pabu, like, I get it. I love that they wanted the Batch to have a happy ending, and I'm even okay with it, but there's always that thing lurking in my mind. Oh, also Tanalorr. I forgot Tanalorr. But even Tanalorr's bigger, like,
that's a big question mark.
Yeah. That's a big question mark, because even that's linked to Kobo, which the Empire does know about, and it has occupation on. But no, but it's really just except for Pabu. Pabu kind of ruins the whole thing. Although they do know about Pabu, they just don't bother going back to it. But yeah, and then we get classic Rebels comedic timing of Kanan calling Hera to ask if the Empire shows up, just as the Empire shows up, which is just perfect. Yeah, and then we have, actually, I think this is my favorite line. Yeah, this is my favorite line from these two episodes, which is when Rex and Wolffe and Gregor are talking to Kallus. And Rex is like, no, we didn't call. Must have been a mistake. Whoops-a-daisy. You don't have to come down here. And Kallus is like, no, we're coming down. And and we're gonna bring everything against you. And Rex is like, I look forward to it, and and there's nothing we can't handle. I hope you brought a better class of soldier than those stormtroopers. That line is so great for me. Rex isn't mad; he's just disappointed.
Yeah. But like it is a little bit about the ego for the clones still, which is kind of hilarious. So like, they replaced us with who?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not who. They know who they replaced us.
Yeah,
that's
what
they
I'm
saw
saying.
the stormtroopers.
That's my
and they
point.
saw exactly
these are
how
the guys
pathetic
replacing
they
us,
are.
really?
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. And yes, it's egotistical, but they also happen to be right. The grade of like, no, it's like it's a great response to like fascists and stuff like that. Like they mean to scare you, but instead Rex just goes, "No, I think you're pathetic."
Yeah, he doesn't care.
I think that those soldiers are nothing like the glory days of when me and the boys would go out against the separatists.
Yeah.
They are like they're just inferior. And yeah, also the idea of like the Empire has no respect for any of their soldiers, and Rex sees that, I think, as a vacuum of honor, which is also why he doesn't take them seriously. Because in his day, and this is specifically because of Anakin, although the Jedi at large did this, Anakin just really did this, which is that all the soldiers were treated with respect and honor. And there was, of course, a camaraderie between the soldiers because they were all born and cloned for the same thing. And they were all literally the same person, so that created a bond between all of them. There was no bond between stormtroopers. They don't care. And I think, again, I love the energy of, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. We'll carry on with Rex saying battle stations to the rest of the Ghost crew gave me chills. It's like we're back. We're back, and we're back in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
It's there's that great line that he says next season, which is just one of my favorites he says in the show. One last glorious day in the Grand Army of the Republic. It's fantastic. Yeah, and so Callus decides to pull a Veers and do a ground assault, wear the bucket on his head, evoke those classic vibes. And then the AT-ATs begin their assault.
Yeah.
And it's intense. And then Rex, of course, comes up with the strategy of the storm. We'll all be blind in the storm, but a Jedi won't. And I think that
cool, because it's showing how he remembers back to his experience. He knows how to integrate Jedi into combat, and Kanan really, I mean, as a Padawan, didn't really know any good. I mean, he wasn't experienced in as much of that strategy as Rex was after so many years, and so Kanan kind of just sitting back, going, "Oh, like yeah, I guess this guy knows."
You're right. I also think it's a really great because Kanan has been kind of a dick to Rex and Wolffe and Greer.
Yeah.
And yet Rex
and
still
they just
trusts
brush it
him.
off and like, oh well.
And Rex still trusts him.
Yeah.
Rex has the crazy idea of going into a storm and having a Jedi in the shots, and doesn't matter who the Jedi is, he still trusts him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He still believes. That's what it is. He still believes. In a time where so many don't, he still believes in the Jedi, which is powerful. Yeah, and I think that is what ultimately earns Kanan the respect of the clones, which is the fact that they still believe. As we'll see in the next episode, that doesn't mean he has to like them, but at least he respects them.
Yeah.
He'll like them later. He'll like Rex later on, but that's Stealth Strike, which is, I think, like a few episodes from now. Yeah, and so we have... Go ahead.
There's the line right there, and that's in this scene while they're hiding out in the storm, and Kanan says, "You don't always have to see something to know where it is." And I'm like, "Oh no!" Like, I mean, obviously we knew.
Oh
shit! The writers had to have known where they were going with his story at this point, but oh my goodness, I was like, "No, he really just said that." Oh,
I didn't even think about that. Holy crap! I had a similar line. What was it? Ezra says, "Targeting scope's useless. I can't see it." And I wrote something. Your eyes can deceive you. Something. Use the Force, Luke.
Use the Force, Luke. I know that's what I was thinking right there. Like, oh, this is so. I really truly feel like this episode felt so like harkening back to the OT. It was just like, wow, this is this is really true to the original trilogy. So yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how they did that. Season in my notes that they put the Imperial March when the walkers were approaching back to back with them putting the Force theme while Ezra was trying to aim. God, I wonder how they did that. And Rex even afterwards gives a great shot, kid. They didn't go on the nose and say that was 1 in a million, but they might as well have.
Might as well, yeah.
Yeah, and then they plan to sacrifice themselves, which is also really touching. We're soldiers, Ezra. This is what we were born to do. And I think this is where, like, I think at this point, Rex is thinking, you know, if I survive this, might as well. And they almost don't. But
yeah,
then,
I like how they left that, like, a little surprising at the end for us with the.
They did. I think they revealed that really well. Yeah, I think that they did that really well. But they teed it up so well so that, like, it wasn't too shocking to us. Like, it was surprising in that, oh, he actually did it. It's not surprising in a, why would he do that? It's surprising enough that he did it. It's not but it's not surprising enough to know for us not know why he did it.
Right.
Yeah. And then we get our Imperial tease at the end where we see exactly what they had to retreat, what the Star Destroyers had to retreat to get, which is not Vader. It's this fucking guy. I refuse. I'm just saying it's this fucking guy. I have, as we'll see, as I'm sure as we get through season 2 of Rebels, I don't have a lot of respect for the fifth brother. I don't like that guy. He's a chump. He basically comes into any authority, any story in the era, and believe me, he's in a lot of stories in this era.
Yeah, he is.
Basically, just be the stupid one.
Yeah.
He's the stupid one in this season. He's the stupid one in Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's just not good at his job. When mutual friend of ours, Connor Chikiti, was reading Jedi Battle Scars for the first time, and he got to the part where Cal is defeated by the fifth brother. I remember he and technically spoilers for that book, but it's been out for like a year and a half, something like that, 2 years. And then he was like, and Connor texted me, he's like, and he cut off one of Grease's arms. I'm like, how? He's never been good at anything.
Competent, yeah.
And the revelation that Connor gave me of like Seer and Cal got a little too overconfident that they could kick this guy's ass. And really, if they just stayed focused on kicking this guy's ass, they could have kicked this guy's ass. Is just so fitting to me. But yeah, and then of course we end the episode with the reunion that we were all waiting for. Ahsoka and Rex finally together again. I so wish Rex was in Ahsoka.
I know.
At the very beginning, imagine if Ahsoka goes to Rex and just like gets a few minutes to reminisce about like what it was like in the old days and how everything's changed now. It could happen in season 2. Well, probably not, because Ahsoka has to find a way to get back from Peridia. Or not find a way, but like they have to like do what they have to do on Peridia before that. But like, yeah. I'm glad we got him in the World Between Worlds. Don't get me wrong, but like seeing an older Rex in Ahsoka would have been awesome. Yeah,
that would be cool. Let's see. I saw one other quote from that one. Going back to what you said about kind of Kanan's respect for the clones, the part where Rex says, "I always trust my general," in the aftermath of the or during that battle as they're fighting the AT-ATs, and Rex says, "I always trust my general," and Kanan kind of just has this look of like, oh, like again, this he's verbalizing his trust for the Jedi, even though it's not being reciprocated in this moment, and I like that line so much because he's so confident. Just I always trust
or what Rex should have said, "I always trust my general." Asterisk. Except for Pispon Krell. But fuck that guy. But like, I always trust my general, except for that one time. Yeah. What are your overall thoughts on? We usually that's about overall thoughts. When the episode's done, I waited to do it, obviously, because I feel like these two are like, to talk about one without the other is a little strange. Yeah, so what do you think about these two Lost Commanders, Relics of the Old Republic?
I mean, overall, just a great way of reintegrating these, clone characters into the Rebel series. I think beginning a long Filoni tradition of mixing his his stories in a great way, but being done really, really well.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of already it's been mentioned, just that the way that this is kind of giving us a peek into the way of this ongoing struggle of Hera kind of being more enthusiastic about the fact that there's this larger rebellion that they are now a part of, while Kanan is much more hesitant and not wanting to be in the military structure and wanting
And
to
of
just
course,
be out there
amping it up
helping.
by bringing in his trauma.
Exactly. And honestly, okay, it's just this this arc begins with a scene that I love it because it's what I love about Rebels, which is honestly the romance. And I know that this is like, people think this is crazy, but like, to me, this is like, it's not the like hyperbolic sweeping things that you get in season 4. I have my opinions on that, but it's like these little moments where, like, at the beginning, where it's very married couple of them, where these little glances of things where it's like Hera recognizing his trauma, like her, like validating it, not negating anything about what Kanan's gone through, and like this the constant conflict of like trying to have shared goals here, and yet there's these issues in between, and like this is like very married couple of them, and I love it so much. And the way that she she doesn't say like, this is silly, you need to move beyond this, but like says, like, she validates when they're having that hollow call of like, you're right to feel this distrust, and then she puts it in her perspective, and she's like, but they saved billions of lives, including my own, and thank you to Bad Batch for giving us that story. But like,
Yeah, absolutely.
like this, the way that they negotiate these moments of major conflict really in their relationship, and it's a very like realistic thing to me of how this happens, and I really love that about Rebels, because it gives us those little slices of life, of how people who really care about each other actually go about things in a major time of conflict. So I love it. I really appreciate that they gave us that at the beginning of this episode, and throughout this season there's a lot of those kinds of moments where the mutual respect and the mutual like understanding of each other's perspectives, even when
And
they
looking out for each other.
Yeah.
I too enjoyed Spider-Man Into the Filoniverse. No, jesting aside, I love this episode, these 2 episodes, as we're learning more about his master's past and finding a new mentor for himself. That's also something I forgot to talk about with these episodes, which is I love Rex as a mentor for Ezra. It's not often he's not often talked about as much as Kanan and Ahsoka, but he's there just as much as Ahsoka is, if not more. Just because Ahsoka goes missing, obviously, at the end of this season. And I love, like, Rex being able to teach Ezra what fighting with honor looks like, just outside of being a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Ezra learning a bit more about his
into the next episode, where he
does.
starts out with sort of training him a different way than Kanan would. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Ezra learning more about his master's past, finding a mentor, Kanan working through the trauma of Order 66, and learning once again what the true meaning of honor is. And Rex, of course, figuring out that this fight is just as important, if not more important, as the last one. Yeah, fantastic 2-part episode, leading us into, in my opinion, a fantastic 1-part episode.
Yeah.
Always 2 there are. One of the things I most appreciate with this episode, and I'm always a sucker for when any Star Wars, but especially the animated shows do this really well, decides we're going to establish tone, and we're going to so aggressively stick to that tone and carry it out all the way. And that's what this episode does for me. This episode nails down, we're going to do horror suspense with a dash of humor, and just never lets go. We're going to do that foreboding something's coming, like, so consistently, and we're just gonna never let up. But before we get to that, Sabine starts this episode by helping Chopper troll Ezra, which is like, come on, that's what Chopper needs, an ally in helping people and helping troll people. But Ezra's so sick of the antics on the ship between mostly Rex and Kanan, who respect each other but still don't like each other, that he sneaks onto the Phantom, and all the kids are going on a solo mission together. What could possibly go wrong? Cut to title, which I think is a phenomenal usage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the cut to title? I don't think I mentioned the cut to title in. Oh, it's as the Empire shows up in the last episode. I just want to make sure I mention it all. So we get to that Haven class medical station, which I forgot that we had seen in the Clone Wars. It's the medical station that Grievous bombs in the Malevolence arc. Remember when Grievous committed a war crime in the second episode of Star Wars Rebels? Good time.
Yeah.
The Clone Wars, good times.
Clone Wars.
But it's not the same one, but it's still great. It's cool. It's creepy. It's like, I love that, like, Sabine obviously turned the power on just for a second. And we see, like, they do several shots, like short, quick shots of the base being like normal. And then the lights turn off again, and we're suddenly scared of it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's suddenly terrifying again. Even though we just saw it totally with the light on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get that ID9 seeker droid, which, dear Lord, my God.
That is terrifying.
Scary as shit. Iden Versio, of course, will later carry the upgraded model, the ID10, which apparently nobody on the Battlefront 2 and Rise of Skywalker teams were collaborating because they named their droids the same thing. Oopsie. and now with some apologies to Iden's droid, Dio will always be the cone face to me. And I don't feel that bad about it because I love cone face Dio. He's great. But yeah, so the ID9 seeker droid calls its master, and we hear that voice, and I love, like, the suspense of, like, who's coming? We know somebody's coming, but who is it? Instantly we cut back to the actually I'll stop there and ask if you have any thoughts before we cut to the Star Destroyer and see how good old Fifth factors into this.
Nope, that's
okay.
So far that's
We cut to Fifth, who just has to get in on the action because, you know, he's him like that.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a positive way.
Nope.
But another thing that I really appreciate off the bat is the, you know, Constantine and Callus are, like, talking in, like, hushed tones, being like, what the hell do we do with this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a good question because, like, the Inquisitors don't fit into a neat military structure with the Empire at all.
Yeah,
like they're just these weird little guys and girls with double-bladed red laser swords who answer to nobody but Lord Vader, except for maybe some high-ranking officials like Tarkin some of the time, maybe, but aren't commanders or military leaders in any way, except for, of course, when they are.
Yeah. Well, which is really how Vader is when he's in scenes with them as well. I mean, he's just more terrifying because he's powerful, but he also is, like, outside of their regular structure, and they don't always know what to do with him either. So
yeah, but I feel like with the very exception of Tarkin on the Death Star, because the Death Star is so much Tarkin's domain that he's established with, the exception of that, I think Vader's role to me is a little more clear because it is above everybody else except for the Emperor. And that one time that he blamed him for, and Tag that one time where he blamed him for where the Emperor blamed him for the Death Star's destruction, and he decided to promote Tag just to make Vader angry, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But yeah, the Emperor and Vader don't really do much if anything, to clear this up with anyone. The other weird thing is, like, the Force has been extinguished through Imperial propaganda, which is what the Empire wants, but it also kind of backfires on them once they start introducing weird Force-sensitive warriors, and everybody's like, what the hell do we do with them?
Where are they? Yeah.
And at this point, I'm like, to the Empire, I'm like, if only you had any knowledge of what the Force... Oh, wait, you got rid of that. Oops. Yeah, so, yeah. And we get cut back to the medical station where Sabine gets the surge, which alerts the Fifth Brother. But he already knew that they were there anyway, just because he could sense it. Ezra is saying, keep your head down and you won't get hit to Zeb right before he walks
Right.
straight into a pole. Reminds me that Rebels can be incredibly funny until it isn't.
Mm.
Like the moment that they like the humor shuts off the moment that they realize they're in any real danger.
Yeah.
And then we get like to some of the execution of this episode that I love. The haunting and suspenseful music paired with those long, panning, lingering shots, additionally paired to like the haunting room tone and creaky sound design. Like they're building a classic like horror episode of television right there. It's one of those like horror gate like signposts to you that signals to you that something's bad's about to happen before you even know it happens, which is fantastic. Then Chopper's lured away by echoes of his own voice made by the ID9 seeker droid, which I completely forgot. It's haunting. It's like really, really creepy. And then Ezra finds it. Ezra's been find it hovering over the droid. I just put on my notes, there's the seeker droid. And 2 seconds later I put, and there is its owner. A bounty hunter? Guess again.
Another quiz.
What a bold ass decision to make. We're going to we have the Inquisitor, another Inquisitor here. We're gonna make another one. We're going to make her terrifying yet a little seductive. And we're going to have her voiced by Sarah Michelle
wife
Gellar.
of Kanan Jarrus. Yeah.
by the Vampire Slayer herself.
Yeah, also, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar as the Seventh Sister so much. I really do. I think she's a great secondary villain for this season. If you want to say the primary villain's Vader, and even that's kind of debatable because it's not in the season that much. But she is like every move she makes, especially combined with the doubling of that lower voice when she's interrogating Ezra.
Yeah.
It just all works. What I think is so great about her is she's so terrifying on her own, and yet you could also immediately imagine her groveling to Vader. Like, she's terrifying, but she also kind of recognizes her place a little bit. So that when when Vader comes along, for example, I don't think we actually see Vader and her in the same scene or anything like that, but like she fits in very well with the Inquisitors, who are all kind of like that. Where like the Inquisitor's terrifying, but like the Grand Inquisitor's terrifying, but when Tarkin comes, it's yes, sir, as you say, sir. I'll execute these low level imps for you, sir. And same with the fifth brother. It's all terrifying until it's yes, Lord Vader, as you say, Lord Vader. I'll track them down, Lord Vader. Which I think is great.
Yeah, a side note about the Seventh Sister. I think this is funny actually now, just as you said it, I remembered that in 2017, I took my son to Disney World for a day and we went to Hollywood Studios. They didn't have Galaxy's Edge yet at that time. And
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Is it
and,
the trials at the temple thing?
The kids are, they're doing lightsaber training, and
Yeah.
don't know like who's gonna come out. Like the Jedi character like teaches them how to do some stances or whatever.
Yeah, and then
all of a sudden
they bring
the doors open, and out comes the Seventh Sister, and it
Seventh
was
Sister.
terrifying.
Back when they used to do cross promotion for their properties,
Yeah.
remember that time?
Yeah, it was actually terrifying. I was like, oh my goodness, she really is scary, even in real
Remember
life.
when they used to do tie-ins for Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't since like 2017. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
No, I think I remember being at Disneyland at that point and seeing like from afar maybe the Seventh Sister, maybe it was Vader, because obviously Vader comes out too. And at a certain point, I think they probably put Kylo in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I seem to remember the Seventh Sister on that stage as well.
Yeah.
It's easy for them because mask.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's extra scary about this episode is this is the first time Ezra's faced an Inquisitor without Kanan on his side. And his master has never been like able to like easily defeat an Inquisitor. It took them the whole season to take down the Grand Inquisitor because Kanan went God mode at the last second.
Yeah.
But Kanan's provided security for him. Not this time. This time, he's alone. He's got Sabine and Zeb, but we'll see, other than that weird trick they pull at the end, how much good that does him. He's alone. He's isolated. It's just him and two Inquisitors. Shit. That moment where Ezra runs away from the Seventh Sister right into the Fifth Brother is genuinely terrifying, even though you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Obviously, this episode is modeled after that portion of the Sith Code.
Mm.
But which is interesting to me, honestly, because until the apprentice murders the master under the Sith Code, the general idea is that under the rule of two, the Sith master and apprentice will work cooperatively to bring down the Jedi, from behind the shadows. But that spirit of collaboration, nowhere to be found in the villains of this episode. Even from the beginning, you see, like the Fifth Brother's like, okay, I'm going after them. And Seventh Sister's like, no, they're my kill. Obviously, this is the first time we saw this, but I like how that carries on into other things where we see a bunch of Inquisitors, Fallen Order, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the comics, where we see the incentive structure of the Inquisitors or the Inquisitorius is designed to incentivize
against each other.
Yeah. It's the classic fascist technique of pit the lower people against each other so they don't realize the higher threat standing above them. But the Inquisitors are so great in reinforcing that without having anybody having to say anything.
Yeah.
In this episode, they're just so great at being like, okay, this is mine, which is great. The Seventh Sister also, I don't know if you caught this. The Seventh Sister has a slightly different theme than the other Inquisitors. It's coming from the same place, but with the melody and stuff like that, but it's orchestrated differently. And that this is a novel threat. That the Seventh Sister works a little differently than a lot of those other Inquisitors. And it's something that I think is interesting with the Seventh Sister, which is that they kind of try to do this thing that they kind of abandon later on, where they try to, when Leslie Headland was making the Acolyte, was talking about the Acolyte when it was coming out, she was talking about how she was so interested in the idea of the meaning behind when Ben says Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force, and so he used the seduction both physically and just by vibe of Chimere to have Osha be seduced to the dark side. And this is in my opinion, a toned down version of that, where there's that line that I've been obsessed with for years, that as pretty as you are, where it's where the hell did that come from? But there's this sort of sexual, a little bit, it's sort of predatory nature.
It's very predatory with Ezra.
It's but I think it's really interesting, and I think that it's they kind of abandon it after this episode. The only time they bring up anything sexual is to make a joke, is to make a meta reference, because in the later episode, Seven Sister is battling Kanan, and she said, "I'd hate to mess up her pretty face." Which is just a meta joke.
Their combat is hilarious. Absolutely, the banter is great and very different than this. But yeah, you're right.
But yeah, no, it's just interesting to me to have that sort of sexual thing in the background, because it makes it even feel even more dangerous.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I watched this first, when I was watching this episode for the first time, I'm like, is Ezra tempted? And the answer is not yet, but the Seventh Sister is picking up on desires that he has and has had since season 1 of where is it? I'm trying to look in my notes. Poor child, if only you had the power to protect your friends. And he says, like, I do. I'm getting more powerful all the time, and I'm going to have enough to protect my friends. And that doesn't sound very Jedi, even as a rebuttal. And we're going to eventually, of course, culminating in season 3, see that grow and develop.
Pulled to the dark side. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to like as like a setup for that, but not as a like actual doing that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything about the Seventh Sister or the introduction of the rebels to the Fifth Brother? Before we go,
no, nothing. Only just a small question I had actually in a scene where I just wrote this down. Sabine, she stops to like graffiti the Starbird. I'm kind of like what I'm trying to figure out why she would have done that in that moment. I don't know. I'm trying to.
It is weird because nobody's ever going by that again.
Yeah. Like,
nobody's going to an abandoned metal.
What's the reason? I don't know. Or is it setting it up because later doesn't she graffiti that somewhere and oh wait, or is it that when she meets the one about
Ketsu?
the sisters Ketsu, yes, okay. And is it that Ketsu leaves a symbol or is it that she does? I can't remember.
She's left symbols beforehand. I think maybe Ketsu has. That's next episode for us. So
okay. So maybe it's kind of to set the like, okay, they leave graffiti in random places and to just sort of establish.
It is a little.
It's so weird.
The question I had, which I'm interested in, is like a sort of behind the scenes question, which is this, and it's a little bit of like a sort of like if you want to treat it as a plot hole and be boring about it, then you can, but like I think it's just interesting to like interrogate and all that kind of stuff, which is this line. Yes, the death of the Grand Inquisitor was a surprise to all. This was the first time we heard him referred to as the Grand Inquisitor. And it was after he died, which begs the question. When Dave and Henry Gilroy and Simon Kinberg were developing season 1, did they know they were going to introduce more Inquisitors? Because it kind of seems like by this episode they didn't, which is fine, but because he was only referred to as the Inquisitor. And this episode obviously also it gives a good in-universe answer to that, which is that the rebels didn't realize there were more until this. And Grandy does sound like you could totally imagine Grandy as a type to be like, no, call me the Inquisitor. There are others, yeah, sure, but I'm the Inquisitor. He's absolutely the kind of person to do that.
Yeah.
But still, it's interesting about the fact that he's not named the Grand Inquisitor until this.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then Ezra gets captured first, which is very smart on the writer's part, not only because it's in character for him as a Jedi, but also because it's now 2 non-Force sensitives against 2 Inquisitors, which is just raises the stakes exponentially.
Yeah.
Because they don't have lightsabers or magic powers. Although technically, I shouldn't say they're 2 non-Force sensitives because Sabine's there.
Sabine. Yeah.
But like she hasn't realized that yet.
Yeah. In the knowledge we had at the time.
Yeah. But yeah. And then there's this great line. We have fought and killed many Jedi. Not all of them. We know about Ahsoka Tano. And what I love about that line is they're trying to project so much confidence of like, she'll be dealt with. No, they're terrified of her. The Inquisitors are terrified of Ahsoka Tano. They're excited about Ezra and Kanan as Jedi quarry to hunt because rare and rarer these days. They are terrified of Ahsoka Tano. And one of the greatest things I was talking to friends of the show, Jared the Dark Jedi, about this last night, of the idea that what Rebels is so great at is consistently teasing setups and then following them up really well. And this is a great example of why are the Inquisitors so terrified of Ahsoka, besides the fact that she's Ahsoka. We'll see in the future of the Force exactly why they're so terrified of Ahsoka. But yeah, that's another like, of course, also thinking about like the fighting sort of a proxy war between Ahsoka and Vader, and now that they know of each other, of like threatening of threatening
Yeah.
Ezra with about Ahsoka,
Mm.
because both Ezra and the Inquisitors are kind of the pawns in this situation. Like, they don't really want each other. They want the big dogs, basically.
Yeah, the bait in a way.
It's terrifying. It's
Yeah.
the pursuit of them, like, it's funny, the pursuit of the ghost of the kids of the Ghost Crew by the Inquisitors is scarier even than the like build up to it, which is impressive. Because usually the build up is the scariest part.
Mm-hmm.
And then Zeb gets to save the day by pulling some bullshit.
Commander Milu run.
We get it back from the first season. I'm so sad Jacob's not here to talk about. Come on, this is Commander Milu run. Which it's one thing where the Empire buys that. It's another thing when the Inquisitors buy that. Although it doesn't look like they actually like fully buy that.
They're just thrown off a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they buy, like, I'm not sure if they know it's Zeb though, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, they think they killed him.
Oh yeah.
And then this is a question we asked for hyperspace last time we did it. Just keep your chin up and it'll all be fine. And Ezra's and Sabine's like, what the hell do you mean? And then they look up and the phantom's on the ceiling, which admittedly I will say, it's a crazy plan. It is far better than most of the plans the Ghost Crew have throughout the series.
Most of the time, yeah.
Like, it is a far more it involves a bunch of improvisation, but like they all do.
Yeah.
It's a really like that's not just a fun sequence of like the Inquisitors being like, the hell is he doing? Yeah, and then of course the Seventh Sister tries to hold them back and close the door, but it's ultimately the lack of cooperation on the Inquisitor side and the cooperation on the Rebel side that allows the Rebels to escape.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my notes, I wonder if there's some sort of lesson there. Just saying. Yeah. And it's a close one, but they escape. And then of course we drop, and then the last conversation is, did you know there were more of them? No, I didn't. Do you think Ahsoka knows? And at that moment I wrote, I think she knows. I think she might know there was more Inquisitors.
Yeah.
She killed at least 2 of them, so I think she knows. And then of course the ending of the episode, as I said in our summaries, is just like them, is Kanan and Hera and Rex just sitting around saying, well shit, what do we do about that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
it's kind of
just
a tone at the end of feeling defeated because among all the other issues now they've got multiple of these.
They did get the medical surprise though, which is good.
They did. Yeah.
Which is impressive that they managed to do that despite being chased by that. Any thoughts you have about always 2 there are in the episode before we talk about what we thought overall?
I think that was it. You covered it pretty well.
Right. Great. I love this episode so much. It provides new challenges for the Ghost Crew. It expands the galaxy, and it establishes an incredible tone. Great character moments from Ezra and Zeb. It also introduces the idea of more Inquisitors and the Inquisitorius as an order in general. It's just a great episode. It might be my favorite of these 3, honestly. It's pretty close. I keep going back and forth because I love these clone episodes, but I also love this one. It's fantastic.
Anyways,
no, I get it. No, I just but yeah, Amy, what do you think? And then we're gonna do. What do you think, Amy?
I agree. I think that as far as introducing more peril, especially after the last episode kind of gives us this huge tone of hope as we end. We've got this reunion of Rex and Ahsoka, and now we're building this rebellion, and we're things are looking more hopeful. And now we kind of have to introduce. It's early in the season. We have to introduce more complication, and this does that really well with the peril and with the kind of that feeling at the end of the episode of sort of just they're back to feeling a little out of their depth a little bit. We've got more Force wielders. Ahsoka's got some mystery to solve about Vader, and so there's a lot more question marks, things that are going to need to be resolved through the rest of the season. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great episode to end on. introducing the stakes this season, introducing the setting, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to cut right here so we can do the intro. I'm going to ask you about your introduction to Star Wars. I
Okay.
swear I'm going to be listening. That's incredible. Anyway, okay, I'm going to cut out this. All right, so at the end of our episodes, we like to do a little short question, not short, but we're going to try and make it as short as possible. We would like to do a little questionnaire with our first-time guests, and I'm going to ask Amy about, these are some very difficult, very testing questions, which I say to all our guests, and then, of course, they're not. But yeah, we have these 10 questions. First question, who is your favorite Star Wars character?
That's a hard question. I can't answer. Favorite? Currently, I'm going to go with, it's been for a while, Keeve Trennis. Ever since her launch in the comics, she's kind of kept me going with High Republic, even when I got a little dragged down with the doom and gloom of it. Keeve is still there, and I'm currently trying to finish Trials of the Jedi and then get through to the final comic when that comes out to kind of hear how her story concludes. But I love how she's just always steadfastly fighting for the light. Like, that's her. She is, the protector of the light. And even when the Jedi Order itself is kind of falling apart a little bit, she's the one, kind of the voice of reason when people are being tempted by the dark side and such. So yes, Keeve Trennis. I'll go with that.
I am, as always, woefully behind on the High Republic. That's what I have Amy for on the Epic Confrontation staff. But I have read the Phase 1 comic, which of course Keeve is the main character of, and I love her in that. And that first Phase comic by Kevin is great. It's wonderful.
So
I love all the stuff with the Dren gear, and of course the Nihil at the end. But the Dren gear really rule that. I hear they brought them back briefly in
they sure did.
Phase 3.
Yeah, they did. They kind of threw everything in the mix at the end. It's just everybody, everything. Everything's in there. Yeah.
What is, and I know this is a loaded question, so I'm gonna have to add several qualifiers at the end. What is your Star Wars movie ranking? Okay. If you don't have a ranking, you can do a top 3 or a top 5 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I guess. Yeah, I don't do ranking.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's fine.
Every film has so much value and so many things that connect to me personally that don't necessarily relate to their quality as a film. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to just say Rogue One always comes out on top, just because it's just the themes and the way that it kind of brings all of these Star Wars elements down to earth in a way. I don't know. It's just grounded in a way that I love. And then I would just put the whole OT in there after that, because the OT is my original Star Wars, and that's what I fell in love with as a kid. So regardless of quality and how it holds up over time, and I think it does, I think it's just the stories that still kind of are a comfort. So I would put those up there with Rogue One. So that's how I'll put my ranking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, what non-movie Star Wars media are people missing out on?
Oh, it's going to be a comic. Let's see. I mean, overall, High Republic, if people aren't in it, they should be in it. But yeah, there are so many amazing comics, and there's kind of a comic for everybody.
Yeah.
No matter what you're into. Honestly, I think so many people, even who are into Star Wars canon, missed out if they did not read the Son of Staros comic. It was a 5-part miniseries.
Oh.
And just absolutely wild, crazy, fun, hilarious, heartfelt. It was all the things. Adventure, great connections around canon. I love it so much, and I own it in multiple formats. I love that comic. So yeah, I would say that.
I'm gonna have to get into that, especially because unfortunately Justina Ireland is no longer working with Star Wars for the time being. So we have all this.
She did so many great stories.
I was gonna say we have more time to appreciate her great work. So
yeah.
Who is your favorite Star Wars background character?
Actually, going back to the Son of Staros. Actually, it's Son of Staros, if she counts as a background character. If not,
I think she does.
I mean, because she was a background character throughout
the only
the
comic
run.
Yeah, the only comics characters I don't think count as background or shadow characters are people like Keeve or Afra, especially. Afra's not a Glub
They
Shadow
have their
anymore.
own, yeah.
Afra has ceased to be Glupshido when she got her own comic. Sana, or at least her comic was 5 issues. Afra has had 3 ongoing series now.
Yeah.
She's not a background character anymore. What, in your opinion, is the coolest Star Wars species?
Oh, creatures or humanoids or anything?
I'm thinking like sentient. I think that the question is sentient.
Species. Okay. Oh, okay. There's one, but I can't say it because it'd be a super spoiler for the book that I'm reading. So no, I would say, in a way, the Drengir are pretty fascinating, even as villains, but also just they're cool because they're in touch with the Force. They're super evil. They make a good foil for a lot of things happening in the book. So yeah, I'll say the Drengir.
Fantastic. If you were in the Star Wars universe, what do you think your job would be?
Ooh, I would be probably too close to my real life job. I don't know. I'd probably be some sort of person who's either teaching younglings or teaching just general kids in the universe, probably helping them learn their various Star Wars languages. That would probably be my my job.
Yeah, and you'll have real rascals like Wim who's skipping their
would drive me nuts. Yeah,
their entry exam.
He'd require some special techniques. Yes, he's a special one.
Yeah. No,
I have too many like him in real life. But as soon as that show came on, we're like, oh, that's like that kid. That's like that kid. My husband and I are both teachers, and it was rough. Anyway,
yeah, no, I understand the pain. My mother was a teacher for a long time. So,
yeah.
If you could write your own piece of Star Wars media, what would it be about? This is one of our newer questions, actually.
Ooh, oh wow, that is hard because I feel like they've done such a great job of covering so many facets of Star Wars. And I love Star Wars as a consumer, and as a person contributing, that would be harder. I feel like it would have to be a story. Honestly, I don't think I'm the person to tell it, but I want the story of Ventress. Like, I need more Ventress. Like we got her little recent, how she came back to life and all of this, and I want to know like what happens next. I really want to know, how does she continue on through this journey, which I'm hoping Filoni will be telling us. But
I've heard some whispers about her in Shadow Lord, so
okay.
I've heard that, I've heard some things that, like, the Tales of the Underworld, like, the reason why that arc was sort of incomplete was that it was supposed to be like a lead-in to some more stuff for her in Shadow Lord.
Okay.
As a potential opponent to Maul and his building criminal empire. If you could take one item or force ability from Star Wars into the real world, what would it be?
Item or ability? These are huge questions. All right, I'm gonna say I'd love to be able to just use force pull, man. That would be so useful in real life,
Telekinesis is like one of our most common answers, and it's one that I completely agree with. It's one that I completely agree with.
Day to day, like it just
the number of times where like you're reaching for something that's just far enough that you can't reach for it. It's great.
It's silly.
Every time I'm at an elevator door, not like a supermarket door, you do the hand thing. You don't control it. You do the hand thing. You do the magic hand thing. All right, here we go. This used to be our last question. Now I put it second to last because we'll see. I'm gonna show you a Star Wars character, and you're gonna tell me how that character's name is pronounced. This is a long-standing bit for In a Galaxy that's kind of been ran into the ground, but it's still fun.
Okay. Wait, the bounty hunter, that's the character, right?
Yeah.
I'm going with Zam Wessel, and I don't know why I think that, but that's what I'm going with.
It's because it's the right answer.
Okay.
Good friend Devore from A Large View of the Force insisted for the longest time it's Zam Wessel, which makes no sense. Every single I think all but 2 of our guests have said Zam Wessel. The point's been beaten into the ground on the Wikipedia page. Kanan has no pronunciation. Legend says either, which does not help. She introduces herself in the Bounty Hunter video game as, "Hi, I'm Zam Wessel," but like there's stuff like in the Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, the opening mission of Attack of the Clones is a wrestle with not Wizel. That doesn't make sense. A wrestle with Wessel makes sense for the rhyme scheme.
And
So
rhyme
clearly
with-
they think it's Wessel.
there could be a phonetic argument for why it would be we sell. So
Yeah.
know.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm always forever railing against Sam Wizel because in our email signature, email us at swinagalaxy@gmail.com, is Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on, and then our email, and then our Spotify hub page, and then Zam Wessel, not Wizel. Trust me, we've proven it. I'm going to forever have that in our email signature, although I do need to update that link for our hub page. Finally, our final question is, what does Star Wars mean to you?
Wow. I mean, broadly, I think a lot of people would say it means hope. I think that it also reminds us of the importance of everyone's role in the galaxy, and that sounds so trite, whatever. But like it is, I mean, and that's even with new media like Andor, it's really kind of driving home like everybody makes a choice, and kind of what you said, the meta of that line, when Rex said that in this arc, we all have a choice to make, especially when in times of oppression and in times of struggle. You don't like, we all have a role to play. Like we all have a voice, we all have something to do. Sitting back and hiding isn't going to be the right role forever. And so I think that Star Wars is also an encouragement to do that, to be brave, to become to be part of the community that's trying to do something about it. So that's what Star Wars means to me.
Absolutely. Great answer. I think that's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. We actually do have one more question for you, which is, where can we find you?
Very few places online anymore. I feel like lately it's been a little rough. But on Blue Sky, I am Guerra D Galaxia, Guerra D Galaxia.
Fantastic place Blue Sky is. That's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Next week, let's see what we got. I believe those 3 episodes we're doing next week are Brothers of the Broken Horn, Wings of the Master, and Blood Sisters. Jacob and I will be back next week with the next episode of Star Wars in the Galaxy. In the meantime, I'm excited. Wings of the Master, I'm excited to talk about for a very specific reason. But until then, you can follow us. You can listen to us everywhere you listen to your podcasts. You can find us on Blue Sky at In a Galaxy Pod, @bsky.social. You can also find us on Instagram at In a Galaxy Pod. Let's see what else. You can find me at my Linktree, linktr.ee/_OTFan327. Epic Confrontations, as Amy well knows, is having a busy time, but we love that busy time. Amy and I will be hosting. By the time that this comes out, this will be Sunday, I think. No, I think it's Saturday. Is it Saturday? It's Sunday. So by the time this comes out, 2 days, Amy and I will be hosting the first ever Teams Championship of Star Wars and Galaxy Epic Confrontations. Tommy Two Horns, Buck O'Brien, and Mo versus Bangers of Smash, Charlie Ashby, and Nikki Kumar of the Imperial Senate Podcast. I have the Teams belts. They've been just sitting there in various rooms of mine for like a good year and a half. I am so ready to give them away to whoever wins this match. In addition, I'd be, of course, remiss if I didn't talk about this Hyperspace Gauntlet 2, August 9th. It's going to be intense. Over 20 competitors. One will come out with a title shot. It's going to be great. We're having a great month for Epic Confrontations. By the time this is out, you will have seen, hopefully, the exhibition match that we did with Michael McCoy and Jada, both former guests of the show, where we quizzed them about the prequels. We did a lot of prequel questions, but yeah, you can follow us on Blue Sky at inagalaxytrivia.bsky.social. You can please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Star Wars in the Galaxy YouTube channel, so you don't miss an Epic Confrontations video or stream or an Galaxy video or stream. But I think until then, all let's say is may the Force be with you always.